Our next session is titled, What Does It Mean to Be a Data-Driven Organization? With Dr. Nicholas Heck-Grossek, Solution Engineer at Tableau. Nicholas, the stage is yours.
In ancient times, unicorns were described as legendary creatures with one large, spiraling, pointing horn coming from their forehead. Ever since, they have been attributed with the most magical, magnificent attributes. They were supposed to cure illnesses, heal sickness. And they were often supposed to be the most purest thing on earth and perfect in their existence. And would you have guessed that depictions of unicorns go back as far across cultures as far as 2,600 years before Christ? Well, unicorns, on the other hand, are also seen as very shy, wild, and unfortunately extremely rare. But since they are seen as a perfect allegory of human creation, mankind has always thrived to get their hands on one of these legendary beasts. Unfortunately, no one has ever seen a unicorn yet, nor does anyone know anyone who has ever seen one, and in fact, we don't even know where to look for them. If you think about it, unicorns aren't too much different from modern business. No one has actually ever seen a perfectly data-driven organization, nor does anyone know any perfectly data-driven organization. And sometimes we even struggle to find our way to become data-driven. My name is Nick. I am a solution engineer at Tableau, and I now accompany businesses for roughly 6 years, both in and outside academia, to make more data-driven decisions. And I hope you apologize this really awkward metaphor maybe, but I hope it resonates with you just a little bit, and we can bring this back to our main topic of today. So, in my time in the business analytics industry, I in fact have seen many, many unicorns. Some of them were probably as close to perfection as it gets, while others were just simply obscuring their old-fashioned processes and were literally just putting on a mask. However, just putting on a mask does neither make you a unicorn, nor does it make you data-driven. So the next question then is, what makes you data-driven then? Well, and I think it's about time to make a very inconvenient confession. So I don't want to waste anyone's time today. If you're here because you're thinking I have a recipe on how you can transform your business into a data-driven organization by the end of today, I'm very sorry to disappoint you because I haven't. What I do have is the experience from 20 years that Tableau is now on the market, which translates into hundreds of successful customer stories. And I want to share with you a couple of the ideas that I came up with when I thought about what makes a data-driven organization. So let's jump right into it. So typically I would now bore you with lots of impressive numbers why it's really important to be data-driven. But I guess by now everyone agrees or everyone already knows that being data-driven gives you a real competitive advantage in your market. This has been proven scientifically over and over again. So instead, I really want to focus your attention to the importance of data culture. Because being data-driven means so much more than just investing in a tech stack. And this might already be a very eye-opening claim for some of you, especially from someone who works for a software company. However, it's really important that you understand that the culture is what needs to be brought together with your technology. Because without culture, any investment that you do will be in vain. So for example, there's of course me and my colleagues from Power BI, Looker, Qlik, and all of the other companies, and we have all very, very good arguments why we should choose their software, our software, for your business. But let me share this one very top secret information with you. Eventually, it all comes down to what fits your business, what your employees trust, and most importantly, what your employees enjoy to use. Because to really foster this data culture, you need to make sure that everyone is able to actually use your software, and you then can create this data culture that will bring so much more to your business. So, to answer our question of today's topic almost straight away, what one could say is that a data-driven organization is an organization that manages to perfectly align both the technology and culture in order to make data a pivotal part in their overall business's strategy and processes. And going back to my weird metaphor from the beginning, I argue that perfectly data-driven organizations are as rare as unicorns. So let me explain this a little bit. The problem really is you need to question yourself, where do you stop becoming data-driven? So we just heard in the previous talk about optimizing problems and maybe optimizing supply chains. And we all agree that optimizing your supply chain with the help of data is a brilliant and perfectly valid use case. However, what about optimizing your employees' shifts based on their current health status because you force them to wear fitness devices 24/7 and then can optimize your productivity? I think this already might go a couple of steps too far, right? So instead of thinking about being data-driven as a perfect state that one can once achieve and then can settle and never needs to do anything about it, I want you to understand that being data-driven should more be seen as a continuous journey towards improving and optimizing your business. If we consider being data-driven as a spectrum, then you can position your business on the spectrum depending on how far you are ahead on your journey. And your position of your business in the spectrum will change depending on your efforts. So in my time in the business analytics industry, I've seen many businesses on different sides of the spectrum, and I can tell you that it's a heavily right-skewed distribution, if you understand what I mean. And some of the businesses were dead serious about their initiatives, and some, like the unicorn we have seen a couple of slides previously, just try to mask and obscure their processes. So regardless where you are on your journey, I want to share with you today 4 steps that we suggest you should undertake to accelerate your digital transformation journey. I think something is not working any longer. Thank you. Great. So first off, it's very important that you secure C-level support for your initiatives, because there's a reason why only 32% of the C-levels report that they were able to successfully implement data culture. This is a really deep process that needs to happen. It's a large change. You need to have lots of new skills need to be trained. So it's really important to be in line with your C-level and also to get their support, of course. It also means that you need to make data a pivotal part and treat it like a very, very valuable asset throughout your company, which then translates into the fact that people who have never used data before now need to engage with data. And this can be a very, very daunting task for a lot of them. So it's very important that you adopt a software solution that is easy to use and flexible to adapt. And lastly, you need also, so after you implemented that software solution, you of course need to assign and commit resources to a project so that you can also maintain the solution and you can keep it up and running and to train everyone. And this leads me to the second important step. It's really important for you that you prioritize company-wide analytics proficiency. Because for your employees, in order to be able to do their job skillfully, they need to be trained in data literacy. Companies with a successful data culture, they both hire externally people with the right knowledge, the right abilities, but they also provide a lot of training to their current employees. And the benefits of all of this are very versatile. So companies that regularly encourage people to challenge the status quo will see less complacency. This in turn will then lead to more data discovery, so people on their own just start data discovering, and they will eventually find out more insights which were previously hidden deep below in your data silos. And also, companies that allow for self-service analytics will eventually see that data creeps its way into everyday conversation, and that might sound like a small thing, but trust me, as soon as this happens, a lot is going to change. I already touched upon the fact that nowadays data silos are very common across organizations. So third, it's very important that you establish governed data access and confidence in order to have a clear and agile data management framework. So this only then allows that you can have clean, trusted, and ready-to-use data that is at the fingertips of your business users. And the way to achieve this is actually a balancing process where you need to balance control and freedom of your users. So what do you allow your users to do? What don't you allow your users to do? So this also means that this is not a one-and-done implementation process. You cannot just buy software and then expect it to run for 20 years, but you need someone who's maintaining it, someone who takes care of performance issues to make it the best experience for your business users. And lastly, I mentioned that a couple of times already, is that culture is more important than anything else. Because this data culture will eventually build a community within your organization that brings together a network of like-minded people, people that support each other in their everyday work. And that can, at the end of the day, save you a lot of money if you don't need to invest in external consultants, for example, because now you have a community that is there to support each other in the day-to-day work. A strong community will eventually thrive if you really provide them with enough resources and give them the space and room to fully breathe and develop themselves. Eventually, analytics adoption will grow across the business as soon as people realize the power of their insights. All right, so this might have been a lot, and you might have realized that there is no inherent chronological order here, so you can just prioritize those steps as you need. What I want to focus on next is a customer success story for one of the projects that I found most fascinating, one of the most fascinating projects I've ever seen. So let's start with the status quo. So there's a particular department at Volkswagen. It currently consists of 31 BI specialists. These 31 BI specialists are responsible for 6,500 other employees, which translates into 2,500 tickets yearly. So you can only imagine their workload, and I can tell you these guys do an amazing job, but they also see, and we heard from the keynote yesterday, that VW is growing ever stronger. So they really know that they need to change something. They need to bring more self-service analytics to the people. So this is when they came up with this brilliant idea called the data race, and actually it's so brilliant that I just awarded them our Unicorn Award. So what they did is they took 44 operative purchasers, so business people, who were never concerned with data analytics before, and part-time trained them to be Tableau experts. And the part-time training is really crucial here, because obviously no one can afford to just take 44 people out of your business and then say, well, we send them back to university for a couple of months. So they said, it's going to be 4 sprints, 4 training sessions, 4 hours each, part-time, and within just a couple of weeks, you have a rock-solid foundation where you can build upon. After these training sprints, what they did next is they had 4 weeks to work on their individual use case. Those weren't standard use cases. This wasn't something like provided to them. So they could work on something that was really close to their heart and increase their motivation. Next up, the most genius idea of the whole project kicked in. So instead of having this being presented to the community only, they were allowed to present their use cases to the highest C-level. So they skipped the entire managerial hierarchy and jumped directly to the C-level to present, crowned themselves 3, I think they call it Northern Star or something, data race winners, and had direct C-level attention through this. So at the end of the day, not only was it great fun according to the participants, but they also just earned 44 more people who are now able to analyze their day-to-day data better themselves, so they put less stress on the BI team. But in this short amount of time of just a few months, I think it was 2 or 3 months, they had now 2 use cases that made it from zero data knowledge to production. So for any one of you who ever implemented projects in large companies, just imagine how fast this is to come from zero to production in such a short amount of time. Let's try to bring all of this back home. So today, we talked about why it's so important to combine technology and culture, and that this is really the driving factor behind becoming data-driven. We also touched upon that I would like you to see being data-driven not as a rock-solid state that you once achieve and now never need to change anything, but I want you to see it more as a continuous journey we're all on. And I share with you a couple of steps that you might want to try out and implement for yourself. So if you're now thinking, or if you're now still wondering whether you should implement your data strategy or data culture, just remember that you are not alone on this journey. There has been many, many other businesses before you, and many of them succeeded with the right leadership, attention, and support, by staying flexible to changing needs, by investing in a flexible software solution, and lastly, by putting a lot of effort into the data community. So, if any of my ideas today resonated with you, you probably think, okay, but how can I start today, right now, maybe at this conference? And what I would suggest is take your colleague, your friend, your coworker, your boss, whoever, your partner, and have a coffee and think about these questions. What is our data strategy as an organization? Is it undefined or ill-defined? And what problems exist where data might be able to help us? Second, is there an understanding of what data exists, and do people actually trust it? Third, what data capabilities do employees have, and are there any gaps in data literacy skills that we might want to fill? These questions will already bring you very, very far ahead and give you a kickstart. And after that, you can just take it from there, think about this for your own, bring this to your team, or of course, we invite you to join us at our booth, and we can have a discussion about your initiatives and maybe see how we can develop together. Oh, one important thing I forgot to point out here, actually. You can scan this QR code, and this will bring you right to our Tableau blueprint, which is a proven methodology. It's a set of, I don't know how many steps, I would estimate 15 steps maybe, that takes you step by step through the journey of becoming more data-driven. So I highly recommend this one. Just give you a second here for anyone who wants to scan, and I hope it's really working. All right. This actually brings me towards the end, and I really thank you for your attention. And if there's any more questions, like I said, I'm very happy to welcome you at our booth just downstairs, and thank you.